Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for what you all have been waiting for, your weekly treat, your HBCU aunties. Give it up for Mia and Tyon.
Hey, what's going on? We are here. We are here today on our regular Monday, bringing you the real from the real university. Once again, I'm Mia, and we have Tyon here to have another episode of what we believe to be real information, real time for parents and students who are dealing with loving on and all the things above their college students. And we have a huge announcement, a wonderful announcement today. We are introducing our wonderful co-host. We had we've been in this space for about a few weeks now, some weeks, some episodes, and we had one of our guests come on, and the energy was so amazing. The conversation was so fluid that we decided, we asked, we begged, we pleaded. No, I'm just playing. We asked what we will be calling our HBCU uncle to come and join us
in-house.
in the house. We asked him to come on and join our team. And so, without further ado, we would like to introduce our HBCU uncle, Andy T. Brown, to the team.
What's up, ladies?
Hey.
Let's get it. Let's grow. Let's show. Let's make it happen.
We got our rooster in the hen house.
Oh my God.
You're going to be pecking at y'all today. Let's get with it.
Not cockle doodle doo. You are so country, but not country at the same time. I swear.
Of course. Don't make me use my Detroit voice.
Oh, please, not today. Not today, friend. So, Andy, thank you for accepting our invitation. Thank you for bringing on your level of expertise and understanding to what what we're doing here at The Real. Obviously, this is something that's very near and dear to our hearts, and we appreciate you, number one, being one of our first guests. You were our first guest, actually, and now being part of the team. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, ladies, for having me. Shout out to everybody that's watching this video right now and everybody that's listening. Be sure that you keep yourself tuned in and listening because we're going to bring y'all the real right here, right now, every time we get on here. Let's get it.
Hey, let's get it. So, Andy, jumping right into business, introduce a topic that I think is a great topic, great time. You know, a lot of people are graduating. People are trying to figure out what's going on in their college career, and the introduction of the HBCU statistics popped up on our feed, our group feed. And two things in particular that stood out to me was that the HBCU's average graduation rate is about 35%, while Black students' graduation rates about the same at both HBCUs and non-HBCU institutions. And that non-HBCU institution statistic is really what stuck out to me because I have my thought process on it. I'm going to speak it because I know you guys have a lot to say. 100% income-based. You know, I sometimes I think, you know, statistics are what they are, but when it comes to the percentage of us who go and graduate, whether it's at an HBCU or not, that percentage, I believe, is a lot based on the affordability of the college experience. So I'm gonna stop there with my comment because I could probably go on. But Andy, you shared it. I think it's a great conversation that needs to be had and understood, really.
Absolutely. Well, ladies first, Tyon, you're ready for that motion. Talk to us about it. What's on your mind?
Yep. So, Mia, I mean, I agree with you wholeheartedly and 100%. And another thing that's been in the news lately is that Duke has actually discontinued one of their major scholarships to fund their African-American students. So, again, they're in a big uproar about that. So when we look at the balance between the statistics being similar between HBCUs and PWI, it does boil down to, you know, financial support a lot of the times. And again, I'm actually watching this story really, really closely because I want to see how many students actually can even get into Duke right now or will choose Duke because that scholarship supported a lot of the African-American students. And one of the things as being an active alum, still attending college fairs and things like that. Matter of fact, I spoke last night for our admitted students luncheon and the fact that the FAFSA is still fucking up. and a lot of students don't have their financial aid packages. They have not been able to commit to their schools. So that means literally they are making their decisions on where they're going to go based on their financial situations.
Based on their financial situation, period. Yep.
Yeah.
And yeah. Andy, what you got to say about that?
Well, a lot of that, that ties a lot on the front end, but also look at the back end as well. Coming out with or without that college degree, what kind of life are we choosing? What kind of income are we even bringing back to our own household and our own community to repeat that and have ourselves on rinse and repeat? We really have to look at, a lot of PWI institutions. What they do is they'll already have the job before they cross the stage.
Yep.
And often we are looking for, I got my degree, now what do I do? So I'm putting myself behind, and now I have to compete people who are now in the workforce and are willing to take less money, me with this brand new degree. So how can I fund my family? How can I do this? It's a nasty cycle. We got to stop it somewhere.
Very nasty cycle.
I'm going to interject on that. I just got a call from a good friend of mine who has a son who's actually graduating in May from a PWI that's here in Chicago. And so what she was asking me was, hey, can you give me some areas where we think that he may want to live? And he's choosing between going back to New York or staying in Chicago, two very expensive markets. So my first question was, okay, does he have a job lined up? Because it's April 29th. And if you're trying to make a decision on where to move him, where he's going to stay, if he's trying to make that first big decision of where he's going to live for, the next however many months as a first real tax-paying job, he needs to know how much he's making, but he doesn't because he has not had that offer. So even though some PWIs will have that support, I don't know if it's going down to the Black hand side that we're not getting those opportunities first a lot of the times, or if it's still, what's going on in the career development? Are we actually utilizing career development in that space? In those last months, are we really taking, the resources that are available in these job fairs and things seriously? I believe Nika and Mia, you guys mentioned that there was a major job fair that went on where the students were like, we're not getting any traction here. Talk about that for a second.
So another post, because, I do tend to follow a lot of the spaces that speak to the things that we speak to. And it was one school, I can't remember which school it was, but every single student who went to the job fair, none of them got offers. It was one of those on-site offer type of opportunities. None of them got job offers. So I'm a numbers person. We started this conversation off with numbers, but let's look at the numbers. You have how many college students graduating across the country? All of these schools have, for the most part, the similar majors, right? Whether it's business, whether it's, education, whatever it is. You have 50 states, right? You just look at the numbers. And then you have people applying for certain jobs. These companies are only taking on but so many employees, right? So if you look at the numbers, if you look at the opportunities, Black or white, there's only but so many. I always talk about the NFL. You got all these little boys graduating from high school, graduate from college, wanting to go and be professional athletes. Well, they only bring on how many athletes a year for these teams nationwide? Was it like 40? Is it maybe like 40 or less?
50, it's a 52-man roster.
It's a 50. Say one more time.
52-man roster.
Right. So you got all these kids graduating from college or in college looking to be recruited, and they only picking 50 out of the whole country.
But it goes back to something that Andy just said. Now, let's look at the disparities, because again, when you're paying all of this money to go to school, you definitely want a lucrative career. But the jobs that may be available right now are the ones that, again, can't be filled because for whatever reason, no one's going into those fields. One of those is teaching, but we also know teaching doesn't pay well. So when you say company, when we're looking at these job fairs, Mia, and you're saying companies, corporate is different from the educational sector. When you actually even look at some of those that may be engineering majors and engineering firms and architectural firms and things like that, they may not necessarily be coming to those job fairs because technically those are areas that really don't have HR. You have to go out and seek these companies sometimes yourselves and say, or make partnership. And this is where that networking comes in with some of those companies to get hired. Because think about it, some of those architectural firms, construction firms, and things like that have been started by entrepreneurs, and they're not literally shopping themselves out to these larger fairs. Think about infrastructure. You got to go to the city. Maybe sometimes the city or municipalities may be at some of these fairs, but this is again, where are our career development people? And are they really astute in knowing how to bring these jobs to the attention of the students, but also what I know that I experienced in my undergrad times. And again, I was a student of the School of Business. My professors were pushing me to be the hungry one. My professors were pushing me out there to be the one to go find the opportunities. They were telling me that they were not going to come to me.
So let me tell you what's happening. And it's funny that this came up, and I'm going to go back to that 35% because some of that 35% doesn't include, and we're talking about the other side, that the other side of the 35%. It includes people who are leaving school because they are getting opportunities to make more money before they even graduate. Yeah. So recently, over the last month and a half, I've written 3 programs for companies, Coca-Cola, Hyatt, and the National Association of Engineers in Transportation. It's something like that, but that's not the whole name, but it's something like that. And the pipeline is not from college students. College students are coming out expecting six-figure salaries, and they rather train someone who comes in on entry level that they can offer a decent salary. So you're not even in college. You're coming from working maybe like in retail or the food service industry, depending on what you have, maybe a little receptionist job, whatever. And you might be making $15. They can offer you $30 an hour, which is competitive. You come in at a lower rate. They can keep you at that rate, but it also includes amazing, retirement plans, benefits. Sometimes a lot of them are offering now transfer bonuses to transfer from your city, and we're talking about around the world because it's not just locally to the US. And you can get someone for a cheaper price without the degree. The times have changed. So what I personally believe that percentage has a lot to do with the fact that people are opting out of going to college because the college experience doesn't yield what a lot of families need right now, which is the financial support.
And I'll say this really quickly. And therein lies the whole cycle of the quality of talent that you're getting. Now, as a project manager, and I'm in the advertising industry, the training has been divested from. A lot of companies are not investing in training anymore. Mentorship has gone by the wayside. So, Mia, in the scenario that you just gave, where they're offering a position to someone who may not have the formal education and may just, they may be able to catch on quickly, but you're at a higher risk when you have someone in that position that has actually no knowledge about what it is that they're doing, unless you have someone to train them or mentor them correctly. So then here we come with the churn. Here we come with, in my instances, the project crashing because you have to double back, spend more on more of the mistakes that have been made. So one of the gripes that I have had over probably the last 12 years in my industry is that companies have walked away from training. Individuals have walked away from having a vested interest in not only the future of their industry, but also being loyal to their company and trying to pull people up to get them to a place where they can be that next big thing. And it's also weighing harder on a lot of us more seasoned people, because we're finding that we're having to do the job, either the job over or the job of 2 people, because we need it to be done right the first time if we're watching the bottom line.
So full
It's a very
circle,
draining
full
experience.
circle conversation. Because Andy, remember, that's how we had our conversation with you. Full circle, right? Got out of college, you got a job in one field. They wanted to keep you in one space. Remember, that was like part of that conversation. They wanted to keep you in one space, and you were like, "Yeah, how long am I going to be here?"
Right.
Because I'm qualified for more.
You know, even if I can go back a little bit before that, remember myself when I graduated, right? I remember the day that I graduated college, I quit my job simply because I believe that now that I have this piece of paper, I have more value in the workplace. Not knowing, not being mentored, right? Not being taught, not being educated. And this wasn't that long ago, you know, so we speak to the younger generation now. We've conditioned ourselves to continue this behavior, not knowing what's going to happen. Did you automatically assume that once you graduated, you were going to be worth more? Wasn't that what was conditioned in our mindset? Now that I'm a graduate, even watching television shows and you know, seeing our parents and aunts and uncles and people who've gone out before, we just had the expectation because I did my 4 years or my 5 years, I have a little bit more value and I should be worth more. And we really don't know what that looks like when we graduate unless we're educated. We have to continue. We have to stop that somewhere along the lines because that's what this real is about, right? Keeping it real,
Absolutely.
keeping it 100. So then people who are listening, if you have children, if you're going through this yourself, somebody may also have been in this situation. So we've got a few suggestions that we could, you know, lay out to y'all and see how this is going to work and what we need to do to stop this.
Absolutely.
To jump onto that, last year around this time, my son had referred one of his classmates that was just graduating, and she was actually interested in marketing, and she was coming, she was originally from the Chicago area. He said, "Hey, you know what, my mom's in marketing. My mom has a company that offers internships. Why don't you give her a call?" Young lady gave me a call.
That's cool.
Young lady gave me a call. So again, I'm asking her what aspects of marketing was she interested in, you know, what types of projects has she's worked on, you know, getting a good sense of where she wanted to be. And the first thing that came out of the young lady's mouth was, "Well, I need to be making $100,000. So I immediately wait. So I immediately turned the mama on. I turned the real on, and I turned the mama on. Because I know what my path was to six figures. And baby girl, if you've told me that you've only worked on 2 projects, you don't even understand the full lay of the land of what you're getting into. Tell me why you feel you are worth $100,000 coming out the bag."
Because she had that paper. That paper.
And matter of fact, one of the things that my mom used to do for me all the time as a reminder for me to push through, and also as a reminder of her sacrifice for me, is my mother could quote the exact amount that she spent in tuition for me. So I relayed that back to this young lady, me knowing that, you know, I'm paying the same amount of tuition that she probably has paid because I have a student. So you're averaging, because we're at HBCUs, you're averaging about $37,000 a year. So yeah, rightfully so. Over 4 years, if you spent there, you're probably in that $160,000 range, but that's for 4 years. You have to understand what your worth is going to be over your entire cycle and how to build yourself up to that. You got to get there.
So, ladies, can we talk money?
Yep.
Let's do it. Is this a good time to talk money?
Are we talking about our first job out of college? Mine, I got paid $19,000 to teach at a Catholic school. I was making more when I was in college.
To be an admissions officer for Morgan State University.
What was yours?
Mine was $25,000 starting out to be an admissions officer, but I got a raise at the end of the year. So I was at 26 within, 30 months time. But again, if we go back to what my mother's number was, my mother was around $43,000 for what she paid for 4 years. And that's in my first year.
I went from 19 to 36, but I came from I was making $32,000 as a general manager for Sodexo Marriott when I was a senior in college, and wanted to get out of operations and wanted to get into education. And I went into education and got 19 through the Archdiocese, but then I went into the Edison partnership and I went from 19 to 36. And then, but wait, I got to give you this last number, Andy, before you give me yours. And then I went from 36 to leaving education, making 46. And then from 46, within 6 months, making 65. And within that year, making 120 in management. Why? Because I had the management experience before I even graduated from college. So I went from making 19 my first year teaching through a 8-year time span, about 7-year time span, leaving education and making 6 figures.
See?
Because the expectation is you cannot make, unless you hit administration, unless you PhD'd up, there is a slim chance you're going to make 6 figures coming out of education.
So that, in my opinion, should be the message going in as you choose your major. Take the steps back. What kind of lifestyle do you expect to live, young man, young lady? Where are you trying to be after you graduate college? Where do you see yourself? Let's talk about these goals. And is this degree, is this path going to get you there? And maybe if this is what you really want to do with your life, let's take a look back and put money out of the equation.
So Instagram post 2 days after you sent me this, after you sent the group that message, young girl, I think she had just graduated from college, and her message was simply, you're complaining about how much money you're making, but did you major in a hobby or did you major in a profession?
Oh, let's talk about that for real.
Going back to that 35% again, right? Because we're going to say that 35% represents a lot. So some of them, while in school, I know for a fact, some of my friends, I had about 4 or 5 friends in school who were making dough while they were in college and just stopped going to college. They just stopped. Because I was in school during that MCI phase where everybody was making a lot of money with MCI. MCI was sending people around the world. A lot of folks left and went through that space where obviously MCI is no longer, but that experience gave them a leg up in other areas of profession that gave them a leg up around the world, and they were just able to, monetize and move around. But when you have people who, like you said, you graduate, you think you're going to make 100. And the first thing they say is, what is your experience? And you're like, oh, I have none.
Right.
I have none. Well, your expectations at that point have to be lowered unless you plan on going back home.
Your expectations have to be lowered.
And how do you say that to somebody who thinks
have to be lowered? Your expectations need to be realistic.
They have to be real.
They got to be
real expectations.
But I want to go back to a point that you made, Mia, about those who kind of, said bye-bye to college for a little while because I am making enough money now. What we're also not doing is looking beyond the present. Because I'm going to say this.
I'm not doing that.
I'm going to say this. Even though I started off at $25K at a state university, which I was getting state benefits, good state benefits, and a state pension plan. Can I tell you, to this day, I have not worked for Morgan State University in over 30 years, but I can still look at my retirement statement that I'm still drawing interest off of some 30 odd years later.
All right.
Kudos to you for that one.
So when you're looking at your compensation and negotiating your package, and one of those things that a lot of those kids are saying, hey, unless they're aligning themselves with a bigger entity, being employed by a bigger entity, they're missing out on benefits and what the worth of a benefit package can be. Even those who, and I look at those that are in, kind of the beauty and the service industries where, again, they're the solopreneurs. They're standing on their feet for the next 45 something odd years. And I'll say this about the beauty industry. You got to keep up with the trends. And I'm sorry, if you're a 65-year-old barber and you have not learned how to do the cuts on the side, the dreads, the knotty knots, throwing a splash of color up in there.
Jesus help
If
us.
you have not learned, your
Help us,
customer
Lord.
base and your market share is shrinking. So that means you, as the entity of what you're doing, now your customer base is dwindling. Your customer base was your revenue. So literally, where do you age out at this point? And some of us in those industries don't go above the line. So you getting all your money under the table. Or have you, even though it's a scam and a sham, sometimes it is still consistent income. But have you bought into the Social Security system? Do you have the type of health insurance that will get you to where you need to do? Because I know your back hurting, and I know those bunions and those corns are really, really expensive in them shoes that you wear. I know you're gonna have some ailments, but
we're gonna call these the Tyon tangents. That's what officially today it's called, the Tyon tangent.
Let's take that. Let's
take that. That's the Tyon tangent. Okay.
But when you're looking at your overall package, you're not just looking at the monetary compensation, you're looking at the benefits. I'll say this: when I made my transition into marketing and advertising, some of the experiences that I gained are far more than what I was making in revenue. Some of the relationships I was able to build. So again, we used to have a dealer conference every year. All of the dealers would fly the whole agency out to Arizona, and we would stay at these 5-star resorts. I wasn't making a whole lot of money. I mean, I was making decent money. I was making decent money for what I was doing, but that experience alone, I would have never been able to afford one of those trips on my own as a 23-year-old advertising executive. But that experience,
bring it back to the reality. Bring it back to the reality of 2024. These kids are looking online. They're seeing things that are not realistic. They have expectations that no one's talking to them about, because I guarantee you, if you went on, the same way people go on these campuses right now and say, what does HBCU stand for? And they don't know what it stands for, is the same way if you go on a campus right now and say, what can you tell me about benefit packages? They're going to be like, well, what benefit? The benefit of going to Chuck E. Cheese. I mean, not Chuck E. Cheese, but you know what I'm saying? Like, they're going to say their minds are not Chuck E. Cheese. Their minds are not even thinking about benefits.
Right.
So that's something we need to educate them on, because that's the real in the next phase of their life. When you graduate, because prime example, here come the mama again. I paid for braces twice, right? I paid for braces twice.
The mouth only 18 years old. 19.
Mouth wasn't even that old. Wow. COVID cavities come up, and she's like, well, I understand that you're going away to school and everything. How would we be able to get your things tightened up, your Invisalign? I looked directly at him and I said, I paid for braces twice. When you come out of school, this is on, if you want them fixed, this is on you. So he has to understand what benefit packages mean.
True. But that 35%, I'm going back to the 35%. I'm going to keep going back to it. Because when we have a rate of 35%, most of these conversations are not being had because they're out there trying to figure out life. And I'm just keeping it real. Can the church say amen on that one? Okay, keeping it real. So we can say a lot of things. Jesus, we can say a lot of things, but I'm going to take it back to when we first met Andy. Andy had such a real conversation about where he was when he graduated, the job that he got, and when he realized, I'm not doing this, and went into something that was totally out of his out of his major, right?
And I like it.
Yeah. And it was nothing compared to what you went to school for, right?
Right, exactly.
So if you look at the apples and oranges, he went to school, had a great time because he went to Grambling, let him have his Grambling. But outside of that, like I tell people all the time, I wanted to get my degree. I went to play stuff because I was hustling. I was making money before I even went to college. But if I didn't do what I went to school for, and I spent all that money, you said about $37,000 a year now, right? Add that on up, we get about 120, 135, whatever, plus tax, travel, tuition. Room and board, all that good stuff. You spent that much money for something that you're not even going into for your career.
No.
But I want to speak for the ones who literally did go into professions based off of what they majored in college. I was one of them.
I was one of them too.
It took me a second to get there. And like I said, some 25 odd years later, I'm still in love with marketing. Even when I tried to make my pivot on a graduate level, because let's talk about it. Graduate school is a thing. I was a little bit more savvy when it came to graduate school. I got offered a chance to work on my MBA at Morgan. That was another benefit because I could take 2 classes for free as long as I worked there. But again, the calling of being in the world of advertising hit me. So I was like, and then let's also talk about it. Parental pressures. The only reason why I was working on an MBA is because my mama said the next thing you got to do is get your master's. You can't stop. I didn't even know at that point I did not want an MBA. 2 MBA programs and 1 master's in information systems later is where I landed. But I was savvy on that master's in information systems. That degree cost me out my pocket. And the matter of fact, it was 2. It was a master's in information systems, management information systems, and a graduate certificate in project management. Only cost me $5,000 because I was savvy by the time I got there. So I got those degrees paid for. But that pivot, even though I was trying to make that pivot into IT, I still sat there. And the same thing that I said when I was trying to be an accountant was, wait a minute, IT ain't me. But I was able to find that project management niche that still allowed me to stay in the world of advertising from a creative standpoint. So again, it's literally taking the time to research things. Like we do a lot of things on emotion. Let that EQ go sometimes and then think about what's logical when it comes to your career. Because to the earlier points that we were making, when the young lady said, did you major in a hobby or did you major in a profession? It's the EQ that kicked in when you decided to major in that hobby.
Right.
Because somebody told you, oh, you should, the type of work you do, you should love. Well, we all know love don't pay the bills.
Well, this is going to be my last statement on this, and I don't care how much I get bashed about it. I personally think at the age that you enter into college, knowing what I know now at the age of 48 years old, how dare you ask me what I'm going to be for the rest of my life? But I'm just at the age where my mama not giving me a curfew, and sometimes they still get a curfew when you go back home. I just think that it's backwards how we do this. A long time ago in the history of a lot of different cultures, you had apprenticeships. You got to go around and you learn from the village cobbler, or you learn from the village lawyer, and you got to work up under them to see if that was something. Or a lot of times you didn't have a choice. You just went into that profession because it was the family profession. But at the age of 18, I might not even understand the difference between a career and a profession. I mean, a career and a hobby. Well, because most of these kids now don't even have hobbies. I'm just honest. But, a career and a hobby. So I think that sometimes the push is a little too much. You mentioned about, families and that interaction and how they kind of, you got your kid going to school to be an engineer, can't do no math, don't have no desire, but you heard in your country somewhere that engineers make a lot of money and it was all money driven. So I go back to that 35 because a lot of us drop out of school because we don't want to do what we were being made to do. We go back to that 35 because we were pushed to go because we were the first in our family to go. You mentioned certifications. You can get a certificate in project management without having a college degree. And no matter what company, and this is my HR hat coming on, no matter what company you go to, if it's a good company, they're going to train you in that job because every company is ran differently. So I'm just giving a little adversity to the whole thought process. And, I get it all the time. Me and you went to college, blah, 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 blah. Yes, I did. But I also made and took what I went to school for, made it a career in what I'm doing now. My happy place is teaching. This whole platform is about teaching.
Yeah. True. Yeah, absolutely. I would agree 1,000%. I think a lot of that needs to fall into the laps of the counselors. If you're going to own the responsibility of being there for that individual student for their 3, 4, 5 years, or however it may be, watch their progress. Yeah. Let's talk about that at the beginning of the semester, the end of the semester, and know that, you're responsible. You take the ownership, if you will. Take the ownership of what this individual is coming to this university for, what their expectation is. And if they decide to make a change in their major, really find out why, and let them know the consequences, along with just, these classes aren't going to be available and they may not transfer. That may not even weigh into their mind how important that really is.
Exactly.
And another suggestion I would offer is also offer entrepreneurship at some universities.
Yes.
A lot of
Yes.
HBCUs will stand for, agriculture
I
and
had
mining, A&Ms,
Mm-hmm.
on the farmland, where we're often,
Mm-hmm.
kind of pushed toward learning how to work for somebody else with our degree. But
Mm-hmm.
take into accountability, if you want to own your own business, how do I move in that direction?
Properly.
Whatever that industry may be, and allow that person to know that, here's an option for me to be educated in this field, because I may not be able to catch it as quickly. I've been used to 12 years in the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
So my conditioning can also help me get to where I need to be in entrepreneurship in the same format, if you will. That's my 2 cents.
And remember,
Andy, I think that's what happened to me. I was properly conditioned.
Well,
I was
actually
to be astute in my space. Like, people say, well, Mia, how do you get up? And Nika's watched me do it. I get up, I eat, I sit down, I organize myself. I'm self-motivated. But I think that's the one thing I did get from school, the conditioning of saying you go to this subject to this subject. So I go from this client to this client to this client. And I do the work, I do the work, I do the work. And I think if anything I got out of my educational career, it was the proper conditioning. Thank you for introducing. Come on now, Uncle. Give it to me.
On that point, the proper conditioning. Again, let's take it back to our situations culturally. And again, how we were conditioned always to be the worker. We were never conditioned to be the owner. So to your point, Andy, entrepreneurship. But this is one of the key pieces of advice that I gave my son, which was a key piece of advice that my mother gave me. Even though my mother was an educator, my mother understood that education was not going to pay the bills. So again, enter all of the side hustles. Those side hustles made her an entrepreneur at the same time. And one of the things that I am instilling in my child, I said, listen, have something on the side, but be formally trained in it. Because quite honestly, even if you go into a trade, you're still conditioning yourself to work. Are you conditioning yourself to own the firm that actually contracts out these contractors, these electricians, these plumbers, and things like that? Because a lot of them, a lot of the skills trades, they don't have customer service. They don't know how to book appointments. They show up when they show up because they feel like, oh, well, you called me, you need me. They don't know how to do their billing. They don't even know what to charge. But yet still, again, they were trained for a trade. So who's that person to come in and manage them? So to me, that's what the college experience can give you. And then also another thing about the whole college experience, I don't feel that the value is just in that education. I feel the value is in the networks and the community that you also get. And 100%. Mind you, even if you major in one thing, that does not necessarily mean that you're not learning about some other things as well, and how all of this fits together. Think about it, Mia. We were marketing majors, but how much did psychology help us with understanding consumer behavior?
Well, marketing and education, and in both, I got the psychology, and then I ended up getting the forensic psychology degree. So yes, you're right, but you 100% right, and it takes you back to that 35%. Because you're going to these companies and working for people who never went to school at all, and they own $1 million businesses. Yep. So then you get frustrated and you see these things. I mean, the cycle could go on and on and on and on and on. But
it's also luck sometimes. Let's think about the fact
relationships.
Luck, relationships, and some of these entrepreneurs that that happen to be trust fund babies. Let's talk about it, because when we talk about the reality of those that are already out here that did not have to go the route that we did, that did not have to work as hard. Some was luck. Some of it was, actually, I do have that idea. Some were those college dropouts, the Steve Jobs, the Bill Gates. They amassed some kind of knowledge. But they were in the spaces and places that could support their dreams.
Absolutely.
A lot of the times we don't have that support.
And I think this really, I mean, we can. So when we first started this whole episode, I spoke about, I have a lot of thoughts about that 35%. I think we've covered it all to say that these percentages, it's there, it's data, we respect it, we post it, we do all these things, but at the end of the day, there's so many different spaces that you can think about for why these numbers do exist. Yes. But none of it, not 100% of it equates to failure.
Mm-hmm.
It just equates to a change that occurred that altered someone going to college and not necessarily graduating from college. But you said Steve Jobs. We could think about Zuckerberg. I mean, he went to college. We all seen The Social Network. He got a $1 billion business from, what was he, a sophomore in college? I don't think it was a junior. But his brain amassed beyond what that college degree could ever give him. He had that brain before he got there. So,
and then I want to bring this back, what you just said, back to a conversation that we just had, 2 episodes ago. Those statistics, guess what that is? Propaganda. Because again, as marketers, we took statistics. I know how to take that data and manipulate it and find an insight, or take that data and take those statistics and twist it in a way that I'm getting the results that I glean or desire. So we know that even some of these numbers and these statistics, think about the consideration set. Who are the people that they interviewed? How big was the set? I mean, I could go on and on and on about, again, how, surveys and things and the data can be manipulated to, again, feed us some propaganda.
Well, Andy, I think that you came on here and created, from our first episode with you in full time, a topic that obviously, this is, I think, our longest episode, a topic that definitely spearheaded something outside of the traditional conversation towards the students and the parents. I think that all of the things that we said could definitely take a conversation within a household, and they could talk about it, because these are the conversations we want families to have before you start figuring out what FAFSA forms you're filling out, when you're filling them out, what scholarship you're trying to get, what school you're trying to send your student to, what major they're going to be, what city they're going to live in, all of it, what benefits packages are available, because all of these things should be taken into consideration when going through the college experience. So Andy gets 2 thumbs up on the topic. This is your real team coming at you, the aunties and the uncle. Andy, we love having you here. Thank you so much.
Hey man, it's great, man. I love you ladies. Let's keep the party going. Continue. Let's make good vibes, good information, and know that somebody out there that's listening and watching what we're doing here is moved. Continue to share this link with their friends, their families. You know how y'all be sharing them crazy videos with other people. Go on and share
all day,
with other people
all day.
We worth it.
Absolutely,
we worth it. We here.
All right, we worth it. We out. We're out. This is awesome. Deuces.